Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us this morning at for the TrenData webinar, Transforming Best Sources of Hire into Best Sources of Employees. Yes, unfortunately, that was the best graphic I could come up with. I don't know if any of you are Transformer fans, but really doesn't have anything to do with the webinar, but always looking for a cool graphic to start things out. Let me just quickly start out and give an agenda of what we're going to cover today. I'm going to give you just the briefest background on TrenData. I'm not sure all of you might know who we are. Talk a little bit about that, and then talk about what are the goals of successful recruiting. And then that'll launch us into the webinar. Well, I've got a little bit of data on hiring and retention. I will talk a little bit about the full employee life cycle on how you keep track of that through numbers and analytics. And then we'll move into where some of the barriers are with technology and how a unified people analytics solution can help you overcome some of these difficulties. So I said just a little bit about TrenData. We are a cloud-based platform company that provides organizations the ability to generate advanced and predictive analytics by unifying, bringing together all of your data to allow you to trend metrics from multiple HR software applications, whether it's your HRIS, your talent systems, or your recruiting systems. We're headquartered in Plano, Texas. I'm one of the co-founders, Tom McKeown. My other co-founder, Mont Hamden, founded HR Smart, a largely successful talent management company that was acquired by Deltek a few years ago. So that's the background on us. So let's start off. I often like to start off presentations with a quote. And this one is very apt. It says, basically, there are two kinds of success. There is initial success, and then there is ultimate success. Behind the curtain is the person who authored that quote. And essentially, if for the first person to chat that answer into us, we'll send a $25 gift certificate to. I'll be revealing the answer at the end of the presentation. But proceeding on that quote, let's look into what can you define as successful recruiting. There are two goals. There's the initial and the ultimate goal. The initial goal is to get the position filled with what you consider a qualified and able candidate. But the ultimate goal is to gain a productive long-term employee to the organization. And those two things don't always happen in succession. Just some statistics to throw out there. Talent and Human Resources magazine, TLNT, has an annual statistic, and it tends to stay pretty steady around this number. The 30% on average of new hires don't last 6 months with the company once they're brought on board. Also, another stat from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and I'll drill down on some of these a little bit more, but in 2016, the average employee tenure for individuals at companies had actually ticked down to 4.2 years, partly a result of the improving economy. And the third bullet here is interesting, and we have a winner, Craig Stewart, and I will get that out to him. The third bullet here, 45% of executives are hired externally from companies. What that means is vice presidents and above within organizations, almost half of them are recruited outside the company. So it's a long-range statistic, but it's basically saying, you're not growing your executives at as good a rate as you could within your company. And, how does that reflect on recruiting and development and such? Give you an idea a little bit more about some of these statistics. A fellow software company called Workable did an annual survey recently on how long it takes to fill open positions. They did it by position and by geography. But if you look at the upper left, the overall U.S. average to fill an open position is about a month and a half. That's a lot of work that goes into, for recruiters to go out and get and hire people. It kind of varies a little bit by position. Healthcare has been a pretty hot market right now, so that's the lowest down there, right at about a month. You know, some go up and high, but all kind of stay there right around that month-and-a-half position, which is, you know, again, a lot of time and a lot of resources going into recruiting. As I talked about, the average tenure of employees, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics does this every 2 years. They talk about a lot of their major statistics. This one is, you know, average tenure. You see way to the left, overall average tenure of individuals at organization ticked down from 4.6 to 4.2, that number that I showed you. And you can see that it's, you know, varies a little bit by industry. Finance stayed kind of the same. I think people are still a little worried there coming out of the financial collapse and aren't fleeing as much. But industries like insurance and healthcare, and some that are affected by the healthcare battle, hospitality, and sometimes tend to have a shorter tenure than most industries, partly due to seasonal employees and such. But you can see manufacturing also had a big dip. So, you know, complicating, you know, losing employees early is just people aren't staying at companies as long. This third slide probably confirms some of what you hear a lot, is that the newer generation of employees, the millennials, don't tend to stick around too long at jobs. That's partly what this graph is saying. It's showing that, you know, that purple part is employees who've been at the company more than 10 years. And you can see generally early in your career, even baby boomers and others, you know, didn't tend to stay as long, but that's really been accelerated by this later generation, which tends to have an average closer to 2 years of tenure. But basically what's pointing to, you got this middle band of employees 25 to 45 years old that don't really stay at companies really much more than, you know, 4 to 5 years, you know, the younger they get. So what does this tell you, and what can you use to deduce this for your purposes of recruiting the right people? So if you look at kind of the whole employee life cycle, the hiring life cycle, you know, the first thing you do is you go out and you hire people, and it's the sizes of a lot of the companies on this call, you know, that's an ongoing thing. You're constantly hiring people. So you go out and you get the seats filled, and if Talent Magazine is correct, within 6 months, you're down by 1/3 of those people that you brought into the organization. So now you're dealing with a smaller pool of employees, but generally that weeds out most of them in the first 6 months. And then you proceed into kind of the middle performance years, probably 1 to 3 years where they're in their job, doing things, and you start giving performance reviews, and the employees start separating themselves out by, you know, how well they're doing and how productive they are. You know, whatever you use for your performance reviews, you know, people are, you know, high performers, middle performers, and low performers. And then the next stage after being a high performer, if they're also a high potential, is some of them go on to be leaders in the company, managers, directors, vice presidents. So what you want to do at this point is look at that, you know, select group of employees and figure out, you know, how can I get more of those? You know, where did I get them in the first place? What did they do to be productive? You know, what was the environment around them that enabled them to be productive? And, you know, how much did they cost? And not only salary and compensation, but did I have to do things like let them work from home, invest in training and stuff like that? And all of that tying back to, you know, the adaptability of the employee to come into the system, succeed based on, you know, how they work and what their characteristics are. So the best way to do that, and what a lot of companies do, is they try and map backwards. So you go to that makeup of that high performer or those leaders in the company and say, well, how did they get here? And again, how can I get more of them? So if you start with the ideal and you back into those various phases that I talked about, the first one is that the performance years, the early to mid contributors. And that's a part in time where you do have some hard data to evaluate you know, why this person was successful and how can we make more people successful. So you've got their performance reviews, you've got what you've been paying them, little softer data, but you know, you kind of have an idea of what kind of environment they worked in, which made them successful. You know, they work remotely, where they micro or not micromanaged? And also, what were their expectations as employees that kept driving them? Were they planning on doing that job for 10 years, or were they really knocking it out of the park with the expectation that in 3 to 4 years they'd be promoted to management? So a lot of data there to kind of crunch and figure out how did they become successful. If you go back to kind of that first year, so you get beyond that 6 months where you wean out people who didn't hire well, you've got your first year employees. So it's less data available to look at there. It's more observation. So you can see the skills that they have, whether they're applying them to the job correctly, their traits and such. You can see how they work with the team, and their peers. And one that you can come out through assessment testing, or just basically, again, observing the employee, how intellectually ambitious are they? Are they trying to learn? Or are they just sitting at their desk waiting for work to be given to them? Or are they going out and attacking problems within the company without necessarily having to be coached or pushed? And then it all goes back to the first stage. Okay, these great ideal employees, where did they come from? How did we source them? Even what did we do to evaluate them through the interviewing process and the screening process? So all of this, kind of gets you from where did you get these ideal employees and how can you get more of them? And of course, you have to be able to kind of expand that and look at it from the point of view of job, location, department. You've got different things motivate salespeople than motivate engineers or finance people or operations people. Location is important. What makes someone successful in Manhattan may not be the same thing that makes someone successful in Dallas or Tulsa. And, also, by department, the leadership and also the job and such. So there's a lot of different filters and ways that you'd want to take this information and look at it so that you can, get the best feel for why this person became successful and how we can get more of them. So how does this translate over into technology? Human resources has a lot of technologies available to them, and mostly in their companies. I don't have the stat up here, but Lisa Rowan of IDC, basically IDC did a study that said the typical organization has about 23 different HR software implementations. You think of it, your HRIS, your payroll system, your recruiting system and such. So you've got a lot of single systems that are bringing information into you, and you got to find a way to get that all together. Because if you look at it from the point of view of, just recruiting, kind of that initial technology success, you recruit into your system, you get statistics from your recruiting system that tells you 75% of your most recent hires came from job boards, 20% came from LinkedIn, and 5% came from job fairs. Well, if you just go on that data, you could say, all right, well, job boards are getting me my candidates. I'll invest more there, and that'll help me fill positions faster. Now, again, we talked about initial and ultimate success. Is that giving you ultimate success? Because if you look across the entire employee life cycle, you see that those 75% job boards, most of them don't perform well, they don't learn well, and not many make it on to upper careers, whereas even though it's the smaller portion, people came in through job fairs, only 5%, they perform much better, show the capacity to want to grow and lead with the company, and they go on to be high performers and successful leaders within the company. So being able to put all of this data or aggregate it onto one platform where you can do cross-application analytics or cross-area analytics and metrics and be able to filter by different things is what's going to get you that holistic picture and ultimate success from your recruiting and governing your organization. So that kind of leads us into, the overall what is people analytics. Most of you are probably familiar with the industry and talk about people in analytics, and I wanted to just kind of give you an idea how we address it here at TrenData. So the way we work with analytics is basically we start with metrics, which are basically compilations of data that come out of your various systems. Typical metrics that you may be aware of are turnover, source of hire, performance, average salary, and you can also apply benchmarks against such these. This is the average salary within your organization, but how does that map against industry benchmarks for engineers, marketing professionals, sales, and such? So you start with these metrics, which are a snapshot in time, a representation of the health of your organization today. And the way they become analytics is you trend them. So you look at that metric of performance. Your average people, is the average performance rating high or low as it goes month to month or year to year? Same thing for turnover. And it gives you an idea of context of where you're going. So are you going in the right direction? Is turnover going down and your high performers are sticking around? So analytics give you context from which you can then interpret and formulate and do the predictive part of the equation. So, okay, well, it looks like this is going down. I want it to keep going down. What are the things that I did or changed that kept it going down? And then you can go to the ability where you can start modeling these scenarios to give you a forecasted best outcome of the actions you're taking with your workforce today. And then all along the way, you need to be able to drill down. So you don't want just turnover for the entire company. You would like, if turnover for the whole company is 8%, but it's 30% in marketing and the rest is 4%, then you don't necessarily have to apply your solutions at the entire organization. You can be more granular with it. Same thing with the analytics and the predictive views. So the high-level benefits, before I go into the demonstration of technology, being able to throw a technology people analytics solution, is first of all, it visualizes your situation. It's nice to be able to run Excel reports and pivot tables and everything, but it really doesn't tell you the real health of the organization unless you're going in and creating formulas and writing things. Really what you get out of your HRIS and all your data sources is raw data. So being able to visualize it in some sort of a system gives you that bigger benefit. Also, the ability to have cross-filter metrics, which we're going to show a little in the demonstration, is this is where I'm hiring people from, but how are they performing? How much are we paying them? And again, being able to trend it over time. Last year, this is how things were working, but did we make some changes in the last year that allowed us to have this better outcome this year? So the trending, again, gives you the context. And then as I talked about, being able to model scenarios where you would go out and to say, if I change this and this, will that give me a better outcome tomorrow? So with that being the case, I am going to just jump out here and move into our solution and give you just a quick demonstration of some of these things in practice. Okay. So this is a typical dashboard that you would log into. I'm going to first start off to show you how you would import data into this system. So, we always like to say, the demo looks nothing, people always say the demo looks nothing like what I eventually get. This is our out-of-the-box set of metrics. And essentially, you can get to this out-of-the-box set of metrics simply by importing data in a number of ways. So if I go to data sources, you can see we have integrations built with most of the most popular systems, and this is just a sampling right here that allows you to import data directly into the system for real-time capability. But what enables us to get organizations off the ground very quickly is the ability to use what's called our TUF, the TrenData Universal File Format. And what that is simply a CSV file that incorporates a number of set pieces of data. It's about 40 or 45 columns. The red ones are the ones that are necessary. And it's very easy to download a sample copy of the of the file, and then gives you the ability to just take a quick look at it and see what the typical column headings were, and then you just populate it with your data. Very simple approach. Once you have a tough populated, you can then just quickly put it into the system, and essentially you have fresh data that'll update all of the metrics you see on the dashboard here. So back to the individual metrics. As I say, these are like our 20 most popular out of the box. We're going to focus on a few for the demonstration today. But as you can see, it's typical stuff that you might want. Number of employees within the organization. How long does it take to fill a position? Cost per hire, reports per manager, performance scores. You got average salary versus benchmark data, turnover, and such. So since the subject of today's webinar is about sources of hire, I'm going to concentrate on two of these metrics. So first I'll go into the number of employees. So I have 267 people in my organization. I can drill down on that metric, and it'll show me a couple of nice things. First of all, I can drill down by a department, and it'll show me what % of my employees are in what departments within the organization. I can also take a look at it by location if I wanted to see, what offices people are located in. And we can also drill down on a few things such as hire source. So if I click on that, it'll tell me, I'm getting most of my employees from job boards and job fairs, and at least that's in the current month, and some from LinkedIn and employee referrals. I can also look at performance ratings. So the average performance ratings within the company right now, as you can see, the only people who aren't new hires that have ratings are 3 and above. But it does show that we have a lot of new hires in the company who've not yet had performance ratings. So that's kind of all the data standing alone by itself. What we want to take a look at is our sources of hire, and how good that's been performing over the years. So as you can see, this is the snapshot in time. So all of the hires I made in August, which was the last month loaded, 30% of them came from LinkedIn, 7% came from job boards, from job fairs, and about 24% from job boards. If I drill down on that, I can also look at it by various cuts. But really what's going to show us what we want to see here is the analytics. So if I go to the analytics, it'll show me month to month where I'm getting all of my hires. And then you can see job boards is the most prevalent, followed by job fair. So again, I might think that's the best place to get my employees. But if I go to the annual view, so this is month to month by year, if I go back over the last 5 years, I can start playing with the data again. So here I've got, again, annually it's showing me mostly that I'm getting job fairs and job boards, most of my employees, but then I can go in and filter a little bit. So suppose I want to look at employees that had superior performance ratings over the years. So first of all, I'll get rid of all the new employees who have not had performance reviews. And then I'll just look at people who had either a 4 or a 5, which are our top performance reviews. And now you can see that the picture has changed somewhat dramatically in that now the top sources are employee referrals and LinkedIn, which were the other ones that are popping out. So this gives you the ability to show tenure as well, if you wanted to look at particular bands of when employees have been with the company. But particularly being able to take that performance rating and analyze, where I'm getting these sources from, and that allows you to then go back and start recruiting more from those particular sources. So so that gives you a little bit how you can use technology to go back and see where you're getting your best people from, and allow you to focus your money and your resources there. There's also the question of how do you keep them around. So let's move from the source of hire metric over to the turnover metric. So this one, as you can see, tells us right now that we have a high amount of turnover, not a high amount, we have 5.3% turnover in the month of August. Is that good or bad? Let's take a look at it again from the analytics view, and it'll show a little bit of trending. So it shows the 5.3% there, but where is that in context with the rest of the trending up to that? As you can see, last year it was actually a little lower, and then it ticked way up and then started to come down. We've got a couple of tools that can help you analyze this. The first would be our events overlay. So did anything happen during those time periods to spur these various ups and downs? Well, if I put the events overlay in, it says over here that we had a big competitor open some new locations right where we had employees as well, and maybe that's what contributed to this uptick in turnover. Management kind of recognized that started to be a problem, so they tried a few different ways to combat it. So we added an employee equity program at the beginning of the year, and you can see that started to have a little bit of an effect as things are starting to go down. But is that the long-range answer? Well, let's look a little into the future. So this is the latest month back, but what does the predictive view look like? So if I go and forecast this out over the next 6 months, it shows me the trending down here as we talked about. But if you go over here, it shows, yes, the trending continues to go down, but that's still a pretty high rate as we're going forward. So what can we do to maybe improve that even more going forward? So what we can do then is, right now it's listing all the employees in this view. I can go to a summary view, and it's going to show me a bunch of statistics involved in employee tenure, salary and such. And what I can then do is then go and start modeling on this data. So if I click the modeling button, it's going to go and it makes a few of these future fields editable. Salary, ability to let people work remotely and such. So if you're looking at the graph up top, you can see the total turnover right now is projected to be 7.93 in September. So even though I showed in my first graph that we're pretty close to industry averages in salary, what would happen if I then went ahead and gave everybody, say, roughly a 3% raise? That moved my turnover down about 0.3%, and I probably went out and spent a lot of money if you take that 3% raise out. So maybe that didn't quite have the effect I want, so maybe that's not where I'm going to make my investment. Other things that we understand are important to our employees are the ability to work remotely. Right now I'm letting almost 0.25% of my employees work remotely from their home. What would happen if I increase that, say, to about 40%? I can see that does have an effect. The turnover rate starts going down, but those are the right people that I want the turnover rate to go down. Again, we can go back to our filter and look at by performance. And what this shows me is the people where the turnover is going down are my non-high performers, whereas my high performers are still kind of staying at that rate that we're kind of alarmed at. So maybe I won't invest that into the employees, but my high performers are telling me they want more professional development. And it looks like a good complaint. I have less than 7% of my high performers in any kind of professional development to help them advance their skills in their careers. It's an expense to do that. So what if maybe I can't do it to 100%, but what if I just do something like 15%? If I do that, you can see, aha, now it's the high performer turnover rate that is really drastically went down and keeps going down. So the analysis here is that the best place for me to invest money, particularly to keep those high performers around, is to put it into professional development and not necessarily, raises and working environment. So that's just a little glimpse at, the TrenData solution. I'm going to go back to the presentation here, and open things up for questions. You can submit your questions by chat. I should have said that originally. But if you have a question and would like to submit it, just write it in by chat. I did send an email out to everybody yesterday asking for any questions in advance, and I did get a few, so I can answer those while anybody else is thinking up what questions they want. One person was asking just for a good source of benchmarks, particularly in salary. Well, one that I've always used is salary.com. They have you know, a good industry base of being able to provide salary benchmarks. There's a couple others, Mercer, I think Towers Watson as well. So any one of those three has always done good stuff. What do we got here? Another one. How many filters can you have for a particular metric? Well, there are some certain filters that are bundled into the system, but we also provide in the TUF file 20 custom fields where you can put additional data in there to filter by. So basically, you can filter by any of the metrics in the system, and you can also filter by ones that are that you put in yourself. So it's pretty open, and you know, if you proceed forward beyond the TUF and you do direct integrations, you can do a lot more with the system. Essentially, what I showed you in the demonstration was our basic system out of the box. You know, if you buy that system with those metrics and use the TUF file, there's no implementation cost, and you can pretty much grow and do that whatever you want. If you go with the enterprise solution, you know, we will build integrations to your system, and we can you know, upgrade the basic to the enterprise. It's just basically how it works. So someone got a little ahead of me here and asked what's in the trial version as far as being able to put data into the system. Okay, well, I'll go to the next slide. You can continue to ask questions, but I was going to talk about the trial on the next slide anyway. So let me go to that. So essentially, we offer a free trial of the system. You just go to our main website and click either the free trial or the download free trial. And that gets you a fully site like the one I was just working on. And right now, it's you use the TUF file. So you can input your data into the TUF file, upload it into the system, and we'll let you trial the system for a 60 to 90-day period if you're interested. Just click on the button, and I think it asks for your email address and whatever. We do fully support people during the trial period too. So if you do the trial and you want to call in and have someone help you put the data into the TUF or walk you through an initial look at the system, we're very happy to do that. One thing I didn't point out on the demo, if I quickly go back to that to show you, is we also have training bundled within the system. So these little camera icons will give you an overview of every portion of the system as you move through it. So, so going back to that, we had you have the free trial. I also wanted to point out to everybody, we do these webinars monthly. So you're welcome to go back and look at our previous webinars, which are recorded, and also to register for any of the future webinars. We'll be posting October's webinar shortly. So one final bit of business, I did say that Craig Stewart, one of our attendees, got this one correctly. So the quote was, there are two kinds of success: initial success and ultimate success. And the author of that quote was Winston Churchill, talking about, I guess, things more seriously than the war for talent. He was talking about another war, but initial and ultimate success. So I'll open it up just one more time for questions if everybody has any additions to the one I've already answered. If not, we definitely would like to invite any of you to look at our system, do a trial, and we'd welcome the opportunity to work with you. That being the case, I would like to thank you for spending part of your Thursday morning with me and TrenData, and hope to be speaking to some of you shortly. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the week.